Okay, today I'm going to make a cream soap with the Brine Solution, and it's 3 ounces of water, or 3 ounces of sea salt. I warmed my distilled water up a little bit. I have 36 ounces of distilled water. I warmed it up, and I added the 3 ounces of sea salt to it to create a brine solution. I didn't want too much salt. I'm starting with 3 ounces right now because this is, like I said, a 7-pound batch, so I want to make sure I have enough. All my oils are already melted in the pot, and the oils are warm. I'm going to add my lye solution. To the oils. And this will set up pretty quickly because usually whenever you have a brine solution, the salt makes it set up pretty fast. Okay, so it's going to get loud for a few minutes. For anybody that doesn't know, when you have the two lyes mixed together, which is NaOH, which is a sodium hydroxide, and the KOH, which is a potassium hydroxide, the soap takes a little bit, the KOH is a higher amount in this, so it takes a little bit longer for the soap to trace. Now when it traces, you'll start to notice it, because what's going to happen is you're going to have like an oil and water, so it's going to look like a little oily film on top, and it's going to look like it's starting to turn into soap on the bottom. And when you give it a stir, and once it starts to completely start to heat up, and the soaps, it starts to form, you're going to notice it's going to start looking like what I call is rice. That's the rice stage. Keep mixing through that, because then it's like you have these little globules of looks like almost like a solid oil, but it's not quite solid, in water. And keep mixing through that point. And then what'll happen is it'll start to thicken up and get to almost like what is like saltwater taffy stage, which it'll get nice and thick, but it'll get real sticky, where it starts to get stringy and sticky. Continue to stir or stick blend slightly past that, because right past that it's going to go to like a mashed potato phase. And it might thin out after that while it's cooking because of the heat. But that's the process, and those are the signs that you're looking for, that you're starting to get that complete emulsion, and your lye and your oils are starting to turn into soap. So it's rice, and then taffy, and then mashed potatoes. And mashed potato stage, you'll notice it'll be just like mashed potatoes. It'll be not firm, well, not hard, but it'll be firm. Sometimes it gets puffy from excess air trapped into it. So use a real strong spatula, or get a stainless steel, like a big spoon or something, and stir it down and get that air, mix that air out of it, or else it'll continue to puff up and you'll get an overflow out of your crock pot. But right now we're starting to get into the rice stage, and you can start to see. I'm just going to kind of let it go through its processes so that I can show you what it looks like. Okay, and in a minute here I'll go ahead and I'll bring the camera over here so you can see it a little bit better. And I don't move my stick blender a whole lot around. I've gotten splashed many times with the high lye, with the oil and water mixture with the lye still active in it. I've been splashed in the eye, the face, the hands. I've been burned many times. I've had this stuff overflow on me where I've had to run to the sink with it because it got too hot and it started to boil over. So I try and take it pretty easy and just kind of use it as a safety precaution. I use my spatula to keep it in motion, and I keep my stick blender in one place, so I'm not just blending one little area. I'm blending the whole thing because I got it all moving constantly. So I scrape the sides down, and I'm going to bring this over here so you guys can see it. See how it's kind of it looks like rice in a pot. How it's kind of looks like it's complete, it's like separated, and it's like got these little globules. So that means we got to continue to mix the formula, or mix the soap. What this is the NaOH and the KOH is trying to bind with the oils to make soap, and those little spots that look kind of chunky are all that's soap forming. So I'm going to continue to stick blend it a little bit for you, and you'll see at this point it'll get creamy, and then it'll start to get that taffy look, and then it'll start to go right away to mashed potatoes. we're in that creamy stage where it'll still break and look like mashed potatoes or like rice again if you leave it alone. Continue to stir. If you need to give your stick blender a rest at this point, just continue stirring it. Right now I have my crock pot on high heat because I know when to shut it down, turn it down. I keep it on high heat so that once I add the potassium and sodium hydroxides and the lye water and the brine water into it and the oils are melted, I want it to maintain a higher temperature so that it will completely trace. As you can see, it's starting to get nice and thick, and again it'll try and break on you. That's why you need to continue to stick blend it. Then you can see it on your stick blender. It ends up being kind of like it's oil and water, kind of almost. So when it starts to get to this point is where I start to think about it not getting too hot, because we don't want it to boil, because that's when it's going to foam out of and boil out of the crock pot if it boils. So it'll get too hot. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that. My camera died. And I'm going to get a close-up here of this. Now, when we seen it just a minute ago, and it was literally just a minute ago, it was getting real thick and creamy. I stopped stick blending it as soon as the video stopped. But this is getting to that mashed potato phase. And this is the point where I'm going to turn the heat down to low on my crock pot. Scrape the sides. And you can see air bubbles in it. They can be your worst nightmare when it comes to making any kind of liquid soap, because the air pockets heat up more and your soap doesn't completely cook. So you want as much of that as possible out of it. That's why I try and keep my my soap formulas, my hot process ones, I try and keep as much of the air pockets out of it as possible. That's why I do a lot of stirring. I know some people think that that's redundant or stupid, but I don't, because I want a good even cook with my soaps. And this is the same basic recipe that I did before that I showed you. It has no stearic acid in it. This is simply coconut oil, palm oil, equal amounts, and rice bran oil with castor oil. I put 6.6 ounces of vegetable glycerin because I like that little bit of emollients that's left in it. But this is also made with a 3-to-1 ratio, so it's 35 ounces of water to all the oils. It's going to be a little bit thicker, plus the fact that I added the 3 ounces of sea salt to the water. So that's going to help pull that stearic acid out when we go ahead and whip it once it's done cooking and everything. But it's starting to get thicker and thicker as I'm stirring. And as you can see, the texture is starting to get thicker on it. But yeah, you want as much of the air pockets out as possible, especially when you're working with the hot soap, and hot processing it like we are here, because of the fact that if it starts to get too hot, the air pockets in it will expand and it'll start to puff up on you, and it can overflow very easily and cause you to either get burned. You can lose a big quantity of it on your counter, or it can go on the on the outside, overflow on your crock pot and make a really big mess. So I'm like one that I don't like to waste anything, so I do a lot of hand stirring, and then I only stick blend when I feel that I need to, I need to push it a little bit further and see where it goes, so to speak. But it's keeping the solution moving so that all of those salts bind with all of the oil particles and the water and combine it all so that you have your finished soap. I know some people do it in different ways. Some people aren't comfortable always stirring it, and that's fine. This is the way I like to do it. It's almost calming and soothing. It kind of puts me in a Zen mode, if you know what I mean. But I like that. We're almost to like the complete taffy type, because you can feel it when I'm stirring it. It's starting to thicken. And then what it's going to do is it's going to get thick, and then it'll thin out because of the heat once I put the top on it to cook it. While it's cooking, you're going to notice it going through many phases. Some of the phases are going to be, it'll be either opaque like this, where it's like white, but you can see with the added salt water, with the added brine solution in it, it actually makes cooking time, it cuts your cooking time down too. However, I still cook mine for a full 3 hours. I just put mine about halfway through it on warm, so that way it continues to, there we go. See, that's our taffy stage. It's starting to completely trace. You're starting to see bubbles on the top when you play with it. And now after this, it's going to start firming up a lot on me. You can see that it's getting really thick now. That's a full trace. For anybody who hasn't made like liquid soap or anything and they're just now learning how to make this, yes, this is trace. When you can, before it completely falls in on itself, and you can see it's already somewhat transparent. You can still see some of the soap particles in it where it makes it a little opaque, but that's going to start cooking out. Now we're going straight into, see how fast that works, into our mashed potatoes phase. And it's exactly what I said it was. It looks just like, it starts to look just like thick mashed potatoes. So see, taffy. Now we're getting mashed potatoes. See how it's starting to get real thick? And it's more of a mass, and it stays together more. It's not completely fluid. So I wanted to show you guys the full stages, and I also wanted to talk to you a bit about it, because I know I got a lot of questions of people asking, okay, well, is it done? Is it done? And honestly, it's about, we've got a few more hours, a couple hours for it to cook, and there's our mashed potatoes phase. See what I mean? It went from that to that fast. So, and it just went that way. I didn't even have to stick blend it anymore. So now we're gonna let it cook for a little while, and I usually check mine every 20 minutes for about the first half. Once it hits about halfway through it, I kind of tend to almost ignore it, but I put it on a lower heat too, so that ways it See? Mashed potatoes. Alright, so I'm going to quit playing with the soap, and as you can see, it's already starting to get somewhat transparent. It's got a little ways to go, but we'll see how it all turns out. I will come back to this and I will videotape it about halfway through. So in about an hour and a half I'll be back so that you guys can see what it looks like. Right now it's on low. It's going to cook for a while. I'll probably stir it a few times between now and then, but after that I'll be back to it when I'll be back to it in an hour and a half, and I'll videotape it at that point so you guys can see what it looks like. Alright guys, this has been cooking for about an hour, only about an hour, and I just wanted to show you, because of the salt that's in it, it speeds up the cooking time so you don't have to cook it as long. It's at its gel phase right now. We have one more. It's starting to go through its like petroleum jelly or Vaseline stage. We've just got it. It'll go through that stage. Will be the last one that it goes through. That's how we know that it's completely cooked. So right now we are in, you can see it's pretty much jellified, and you can see that it's pretty it's gel. And I will show you when we get to the Vaseline stage. It's going to have the consistency of Vaseline. You'll see it. I turned the heat down already, even though it's only an hour into the cook. But it's on warm right now. I took it off of low and just put it on the warm setting so that it has a chance to completely continue staying warm for a little while, but not overcook it and get too hot. So I'll check that back in about a half an hour or so, and I'm betting you within 45 minutes we'll be at a complete Vaseline stage with it. So that's gel, and we'll see it in a little bit. Alright, cook time is up, and this is our Vaseline stage. It's like jelly-like, like petroleum jelly. That's our Vaseline stage. So it's at our done cooking stage right now. So I'm going to wait until tomorrow, until this cools, and then we'll whip it together and I'll show you what it looks like then. Alright, this is the liquid soap that the cream soap that I made yesterday with the Brine Solution. This is what it looks like after it's completely cooled. I'm going to go ahead and start whipping it and see what kind of consistency we come up with. as you can see, it's really thick. I used the 3-to-1 ratio with this, and I don't think my hand mixer is going to take too much more because I can smell it already getting hot. So I'm going to break this down into smaller containers, or small, like smaller amounts to whip together. But as you can see, it's got a nice creamy thick consistency, and I mean, it's like really thick. I haven't added any extra water to it. It's got 36 ounces of water with a 10% salt solution added, or salt added to it. So I used 3 ounces of sea salt to the 36 ounces of water when I made it. This is the basic recipe. And like I said, I'm going to go ahead and mix this a little bit and take it out into a smaller container because it's a little too much for my hand mixer to handle right now because it's starting to overheat. So I'll be back in a little bit and show you the finished product. Alright, I got it all mixed up, and I had to take it out in smaller batches because my hand mixer wouldn't handle the full load of mixing it. But at each small batch, I would say I did it 4 times, so maybe a pound to 2 pounds each. I had to add 1 ounce of water to each one when I was mixing it to come up with this kind of a consistency. So it's still really thick. We're going to let it sit and rot for the next 3 weeks and see how it turns out. So we will see you later. Well, here's what I have so far. And there's no separation. It's, like I said, it's real thick. You can see that it's real creamy. And it's hard to get in the container. But if you want it a little bit thinner, you can always add a little bit more water to it when you're mixing it, because we did do a 3-to-1 ratio, so you can add up to like 10 ounces of water to it, or even more depending on how thin you want yours. But again, this is with a 10% salt added to the actual water at the time that we did our lyes. So there you go. That's a full container. And in case you're wondering, this is what the consistency is of it. And I'm going to bring this over here so you can see what kind of lather we got. So we get a really nice thick lather as usual with the recipe, and it just keeps coming back. So I'm really happy with the salt water, the brine solution added to the water. I heated the water up beforehand and added the 3 ounces of salt to this water and then let it cool, and then added my lyes to it and added that to the oils. So, talk to you later.